The first time I joked that my boss was my wife, I did it to stop a rumor before it reached the board. A photographer's flash struck the rim of my water glass, bright enough to turn the ballroom white for half a second. When the light faded, I saw exactly what Marcus wanted everyone else to miss. Claire Thomas was trapped near the charity auction table. Not physically. Marcus was too careful for that. He had built the kind of cage that looked polite from 10 feet away. 3 investors stood in a half-circle around her. Julian, the event organizer, hovered nearby with a tablet pressed to his chest, unsure whether to interrupt. A donor with a champagne flute had slowed just enough to listen. Claire wore a structured black formal dress with a sheer wrap across her shoulders, polished enough for cameras and practical enough for a night full of handshakes. Her blonde hair was pinned into a neat updo. To the room, she looked calm, untouchable, and perfectly in control. But her right index finger tapped once against the side of her clutch. Then she forced it still. That was the tell. I set my glass on a passing tray and crossed the ballroom. I did not hurry. Panic is visible in the shoulders. At a gala full of donors, investors, reporters, and board members looking for weakness, even urgency needed tailoring. Marcus saw me before Claire did. He was a senior board member, charming in public and surgical in private. The kind of man who could turn concern into a weapon and make it sound like governance. "It's a simple question, Claire," Marcus said, his voice just loud enough for the donor to catch. "When a CEO approves unusual vendor expenses 3 quarters in a row, the board has a responsibility to ask whether the process is still independent." Claire's face did not change. "The vendors are fully vetted," she said. "Legal reviewed the approvals." "Of course," Marcus replied, "but perception matters. Especially when the CEO's crisis team seems to have unusually close access to operational decisions." There it was. Not an accusation. Worse. A suggestion? Marcus did not need proof tonight. He needed listeners. He wanted donors to leave the gala, repeating the shape of a scandal. Claire Thomas, CEO of a high-tier communications firm, gave too much access to her crisis consultant. Maybe the vendor budget was dirty. Maybe the late-night meetings were personal. Maybe she had lost control of the company she built. I stepped into the space beside Claire, angled toward Marcus but not blocking her. "Claire," I said, "Sarah is waiting on the compliance call." That was true. Sarah, our head of legal, was always waiting when Marcus cornered Claire in public. Marcus smiled. We were in the middle of a board discussion. "At a charity gala?" I asked. The donor shifted his champagne flute lower. I turned slightly toward him, then back to Marcus. "The board packet goes out at 8 tomorrow morning," I said. "It includes legal's vendor summary, the Q3 reconciliation, and the third-party review," Marcus requested. "Everyone will have the same facts at the same time." Facts. Not charm. Not anger. Facts ended rumors faster than emotion did. Marcus's jaw tightened. Claire lifted her hand to her mouth, not to hide embarrassment, but to hold back the smallest smile. It matched the ballroom perfectly. Graceful, controlled, and dangerous, only to a man who thought she had run out of support. "Enjoy the evening," Claire said to the donor. Then she turned and walked beside me through the room. We stopped in a quiet alcove near the coat check. The music softened behind us. Julian passed by, saw Claire's face, and pretended to need the guest list on his tablet. Good man. He knew when to give space. Claire let out one controlled breath. "You didn't lie," she said. "No, you usually improvise something more dramatic. I'm trying to grow as a person." "That sounds unlikely." It was also more useful to tell the truth. "Sarah is waiting." Claire rubbed the edge of her clutch with her thumb. "Marcus has the preliminary Q3 expense reports," she said. Unredacted. My hand stopped above my phone. "Who else knows?" "Sarah." "Me." "Now, you." That leak came from inside. "Yes. And Marcus is building toward a board vote." Claire looked toward the ballroom, where Marcus had already joined another cluster of investors. "He wants my seat," she said. "If he can make the vendor approvals look like mismanagement, he can argue I'm a reputational liability. If he adds personal rumors to the financial ones, he can scare the legacy investors into voting no confidence." The 3 anchors were clean. Claire was trapped because the board could remove her before the audit closed. Marcus's leverage was leaked expense data and suggestive public rumor. My buy-in was practical. I was the external crisis PR manager hired by the company's legal department to keep a false scandal from destroying shareholder confidence. Before anything else, it was my job. Before I cared how Claire's hand tightened around her clutch, before I noticed she drank green tea when she was exhausted, before her silence started meaning more to me than anyone else's speech, I had a contract, a crisis, and a measurable threat. Send the reports to my secure server, I said. Do not forward from your personal email. Sarah needs to preserve chain of custody. Claire's expression sharpened. You think Marcus will leak more? I think he already has a second move prepared. And your move? I make the truth easier to repeat than the rumor. That was my work. A rumor was not killed by shouting. It was killed by a cleaner sentence. 2 days later, the sentence almost came from me in the worst possible room. We sat in a windowless conference room on the 40th floor with Hayes, a vendor representative who looked like he had slept badly and printed too many emails before breakfast. The air conditioning blew cold across the table. Claire sat across from him with Sarah beside her. I sat to Claire's right with my laptop open and the approved travel ledger ready. Hayes tapped his pen against his notepad. Miss Thomas, my board values the partnership, he said. But they are hearing concerns. Unconventional approvals. Late-night strategy sessions. Repeated travel expenses involving you and your crisis consultant. He glanced at me. Then at Claire. Clumsy. Offensive. Useful. Because clumsy rumors could be corrected in the room. Claire folded her hands. Our travel logs are available for review. I manage the travel ledger, I said. Hayes looked at me. I turned the laptop slightly. Every flight, hotel, rideshare, meal receipt, and late-night vendor meeting is itemized under Project Code 409, with approval timestamps from legal and finance. I can send the encrypted ledger to your board contact while we sit here. Hayes shifted. It's not that I'm accusing anyone. It's just perception. You two are always together on crisis calls. People talk. My thumb stopped above the keyboard. I set it flat on the table before irritation could reach my face. People talk when they don't have documents, I said. I practically see the crisis room more than my apartment. I joked with the security guard yesterday that my boss was my wife, considering I spend more time defending her calendar than using my own. It was dry, boring, harmless if handled correctly. Hayes let out a nervous breath. Sarah lowered her eyes to hide a smile. Claire looked at me, not like a CEO correcting an advisor. Like someone who had been fighting alone for too long and had just found one absurd, human inch of relief in a room built to drain it from her. You say that like it isn't true yet, Ethan, she said. The room went still. Hayes blinked. Sarah looked up. Claire did not blush. She did not lean into the joke. She simply held my gaze for one beat, then turned back to Hayes. In the sense that he is the only person in this building who keeps showing up with facts, she added. Now, please review the ledger. The danger passed because she named it properly. No flirtation, no implication, no secret. A fact. Hayes opened the file I sent. The ledger filled his screen. Every line had a timestamp. Every timestamp had approval. Every approval had legal attached. By the time he left, the vendor contract was secure. When the door closed, Sarah exhaled first. That could have gone badly. It didn't, Claire said. I closed my laptop. It was still a loose thread. Claire looked at me. You made the joke. I made a controlled joke. You gave it oxygen. I clarified it. You rescued it. Sarah stood, collecting her folders. You both need to stop talking like a deposition transcript, wrote a romance novel. Claire raised an eyebrow. This is not a romance. No, Sarah said. It is a compliance nightmare waiting for me to retire. She left before either of us could answer. Claire gathered her papers more slowly. Thank you for stepping in with Hayes. It's the work. It is still a choice. I looked at the empty chair where Hayes had been. Knew. It's a process. Claire paused. That's what you hide behind when you care. I did not answer. Trust issues were useful in my profession. They made me check the second source, verify the quiet file, read the footnote no one else wanted to read. They also made personal gratitude feel like a trap. So I did what I knew how to do. I opened another file. Marcus has someone in accounting or IT, I said. I'm going to find the leak. By week 3, the office felt less like a company and more like a sealed case file. Security access was tightened. Sarah moved sensitive documents into a restricted legal hold folder. Julian stopped leaving printed gala schedules unattended because Marcus had started appearing wherever Claire's donors were seated. Hayes's contract stayed intact, but two smaller vendors paused their renewals after receiving anonymous governance concerns. Marcus was not trying to win with one strike. He was building weather. A little fog here, a little pressure there, enough to make people question whether Claire was still safe to follow. We worked late in Claire's office on a Thursday night. Rain streaked down the windows, turning the city lights into long, blurred lines. My laptop showed a map of file access logs. Sarah sat in the armchair with her shoes kicked off under the coffee table, red pen in hand. Claire stood at the whiteboard, rewriting the board narrative in 3 columns. Rumor. Fact action. She did not look like a cornered executive anymore. She looked like a woman designing a counterattack. Julian knocked once and entered with 3 paper cups. Tea for Claire, he said. Black coffee for Ethan. Whatever legal drinks when she's angry for Sarah. Sarah accepted her cup. This is mint tea. You looked mint angry. I'll allow it. Claire picked up her cup and smiled at Julian. Thank you. He looked at the whiteboard. Do I want to know why Marcus's name is under action 3 times? No, Sarah said. Yes, I said. Claire said, only if you can keep pretending you didn't hear it? Julian nodded. Event organizer privilege. That is not a legal category, Sarah said. It should be. He left. For the first time all week, the room laughed. Small, tired, necessary. Then my software pinged. The access log I had been waiting for appeared in the forensic portal. I leaned closer. Sarah noticed first. What? Accounting export. Pulled at 2. A pop list. 3 weeks ago, I said. By a contractor account that should have been disabled, Claire crossed the room. I did not move the screen away. It accessed Q3 preliminary reports, I continued, then downloaded a partial vendor ledger. Sarah stood. Name? Contractor account was under Nolan Pierce, but the login came through a device fingerprint we have seen before. I clicked the linked trace. The room went quiet. Sarah read the result aloud. Marcus's Consulting LLC. Claire set her tea down carefully. Porcelain touched wood with a small, clean sound. Can we prove it? Not with my screen alone, I said. We need outside forensic preservation before anyone touches the raw logs. Sarah was already dialing. Good answer. That was why Sarah mattered. Without her, my work would be clever. With her, it became admissible. By midnight, an outside cybersecurity firm had preserved the routing data, signed a chain of custody report, and locked a forensic copy. By 1 in the morning, Sarah had a preliminary legal memo. By 2, Claire had rewritten the board narrative. Rumor. Fact action. Marcus leaked partial documents. The partial documents damaged vendor confidence. The company would respond with verified records, board discipline, and a narrow press statement. At 2:30, Claire sat down for the first time in hours. I placed her untouched tea closer to her elbow. She looked at it. I didn't ask for that. You forgot it existed. I forgot most things existed. Drink. She gave me a look. That sounded like an order. It was a recommendation with strong formatting. Sarah did not look up from her memo. I hate both of you. Claire drank the tea. The crisis hit at 9:00 the next morning. An anonymous business blog published the headline, Marcus had been building toward leadership or liability, CEO funnels, contracts to crisis team, amid ethics questions. The article included blurred screenshots of the leaked expense reports, stripped of approvals, context, and legal review. It avoided direct accusations because cowards often understood defamation law better than ethics. But the wording was poisonous. Unusual proximity, unquestioned access, blurred professional lines. My phone lit up. Julian texted first. Donors asking if gala sponsors should pull? Hayes followed. My board wants reassurance by noon. Sarah sent only one line. War room. Now I entered Claire's office at 9:07. She stood by the window, watching the city through gray morning light. Her shoulders were straight. Her face was calm. Her hand held a silver pen so tightly the knuckle had gone pale. Marcus called for an emergency board vote tomorrow, she said. He is using the article as justification? Yes, he wants me to resign before the vote. Yes, I considered it for about 3 minutes. I set my laptop on her desk. And? She turned. I decided I am tired, not guilty. That was the CEO. Not the rumor. Not the woman Marcus thought he could exhaust into surrender. The CEO. Good, I said. Sarah has the forensic report. Hayes gets the vendor packet by 11. Julian gets a sponsor statement by 10. Your board packet goes out at noon. You do not defend your character. You demonstrate governance. Claire looked at the columns on her whiteboard. Rumor. Fact, action. Then, she crossed out rumor. Facts and action, she said. Exactly. Bejeshenge. 30. Julian had turned the sponsor concern into an attendance advantage. He called every major donor personally, not with panic, but with schedule updates. Claire Thomas will address the governance review during the private sponsor breakfast next week, he said on each call. No speculation, no drama, just the documented record and the firm's continuity plan. I heard him repeat the line 5 times from the glass conference room. Each time, his voice grew steadier. Each time, the rumor lost a little oxygen. At unsprazeche. 0, 0. Hayes received the vendor packet, full ledger, legal approvals, deliverable map, and a short note from Sarah that said all vendor payments had been reviewed and verified. Nothing defensive. Nothing emotional. Hayes called at 11. 17. I put him on speaker with Claire and Sarah in the room. My board is satisfied, he said. We are not pausing the contract. Claire closed her eyes once. Not relief yet. Not while Marcus still had the board vote. But one wall had held. At noon, the board packet went out. Et dois preseke. 0, 4. Marcus replied to all. Given public concern, I believe the board must consider whether management has weaponized internal legal resources to protect the CEO personally. Sarah read it, smiled without warmth, and typed 3 words. Noted for record. Then, she hit send. Was that necessary? Julian asked from the doorway. Yes, Sarah and I said together. Claire finally laughed. For 4 seconds, the war room felt human again. Then, the next call came. The boardroom the next afternoon felt like a courtroom designed by people with expensive watches. 12 board members sat around the long table. Sarah sat to Claire's left. I sat 1 chair behind, as external crisis counsel, not a voting participant. Julian waited outside with a prepared media hold statement, 3 sponsor updates, and a face that said he had aged 5 years since breakfast. Marcus sat near the far end, hands folded, expression grave enough to insult everyone in the room. He spoke first. This is not personal, Marcus said. Claire's leadership has brought value. But the public narrative has shifted. The board must consider whether her continued leadership now represents reputational risk. A few board members looked down at the printed article. Good, let them look. Paper made manipulation feel smaller. Claire did not respond defensively. She nodded to Sarah. Sarah stood. Before the board discusses confidence, legal will establish the record. She distributed a sealed packet to each member. Vendor approvals. Complete Q3 ledger. Forensic chain of custody. Communications timeline. Sponsor response summary. And fiduciary duty memo. I connected the projector. A timeline appeared. Not dramatic. Clear. Marcus's leaked screenshots on one side. Full approved entries on the other. Then the forensic routing report. Sarah spoke. Not me. The documents used in the article were taken from an improperly accessed contractor account. The partial ledger was then submitted to the blog through a server owned by Marcus Vale Consulting LLC. The routing data has been preserved by an outside cybersecurity firm. Chain of custody is attached. Marcus pushed back from the table. This is an outrageous attempt to distract from Claire's judgment. I clicked once. The screen changed to Hayes's vendor ledger. Every expense tied to client deliverables. Every approval timestamped by legal and finance. The company's judgment is documented, Sarah said. Marcus's leak is documented. The question before the board is not whether Claire created reputational risk. It is whether a board member manufactured reputational risk to force a leadership change. Silence. One board member removed his glasses. Another stopped writing. Claire finally spoke. When I built this firm, I promised clients we would never sell panic as strategy, she said. We would use facts, timing, and discipline. That rule applies inside this room too. I am not asking you to trust me because I am offended. I am asking you to read the packet. She looked at Marcus. And then decide whether the person who created the crisis should be allowed to lead the company through it. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. Then the legacy investor at the center of the table closed the blog article and placed it face down. I moved to remove Marcus from the board pending formal investigation. A second came immediately. Marcus stood. "You are making a mistake." Claire did not move. "No," she said. "We are correcting one." The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. Marcus was out before sunset. The no-confidence vote died without being called. The press statement went out at 5:12 p.m. Short, factual, boring. A board member resigned after a governance review. Vendor confidence remained strong. The company moved forward. Boring statements saved companies. Romantic statements did not, which was why the next part had to wait. At 6:03, Sarah walked into my temporary office with a folder. "Emergency crisis contract closure," she said. I looked up. "The crisis is not fully over. The board action is complete. The emergency scope you were hired for is complete. Any future reputation work will be put out for formal bid next quarter, and you will not be eligible to discuss it with Claire privately." "Good?" She slid the folder across my desk. "Final invoice approved. Reference letter signed. Legal memo attached confirming your work was verified by outside forensic vendors and performed under Sarah Kim, head of legal, not personal direction from Claire Thomas." I opened the folder. Everything was clean. No future work dependent on Claire. No fee pending. No leverage. Sarah crossed her arms. "You understand why I am doing this?" "Yes, say it." "So, there is no power imbalance, no employment pressure, no implied professional consequence, and no confusion between crisis work and personal choice." "Good." She tapped the folder. At 0 p.m., your emergency role ended. At 6:03, I handed you the paperwork. Anything Claire asks you after this is not a company matter. "She told you." Sarah's expression softened, barely. She asked me what clean looked like. My throat tightened. I looked at the signed closure letter again. Clean looked like paper. Clear lines. No hidden pressure. No debt. No favor waiting to be repaid. Sarah moved to the door. "Ethan." "Yes?" "If you heard her, I will not need Marcus's tactics. Mine will be admissible." Then she left. Claire arrived 20 minutes later. No files. No clutch. No board packet. Just Claire in a charcoal blazer, hair still pinned from the board meeting, face tired in the way victory sometimes made people look when the cost finally caught up. She stopped at the threshold. "Sarah closed your contract." "She did." "Your invoice is approved?" "Yes." "Your reference letter?" "Signed." "No future work depends on me?" "No." "If you say no to what I ask next, nothing changes professionally?" "Nothing." She nodded. Then, stepped inside. "Then I'm asking outside the contract." The office was quiet enough that I heard the city traffic far below. Claire looked straight at me. Julian rescheduled the charity dinner for Friday. The same ballroom. Same donors. Same cameras. I have to attend as CEO, and I can handle that. She paused. "I don't need my crisis manager there." "No, I don't need a shield." "No." Her mouth curved slightly. "But I would like Ethan Scott to come with me, because he wants to." The briefcase sat between us on the desk. For the first time all week, neither of us reached for a file. "What if I say yes, and the room talks?" I asked. "Then the room talks about something true. What if they think you waited until the board was safe?" "I did wait until the board was safe." "What if they think I only came because you were my client?" She lifted the signed closure letter from my desk. "Then I will show them the date." That made me smile despite myself. Romantic. Documented. "Sarah trained you." I was always like this. I believed her. I let go of the briefcase handle. "Yes," I said. Claire's smile changed the room more quietly than any victory speech could have. "What time should I pick you up?" I asked. She shook her head. "I'll meet you there." Separate cars. Clean lines. Very CEO of you. Very crisis PR of me. Friday night brought us back to the ballroom where Marcus had first tried to turn concern into a coup. Same chandeliers. Same marble columns. Same auction tables. But not the same room. Julian met me near the entrance with an earpiece, a clipboard, and the haunted look of a man responsible for seating donors who believed table placement was a moral issue. "You are not on tonight's staff list," he said. "I know." "You are on Claire's personal guest list." "I know." He looked at my tuxedo. You clean up better when not carrying a laptop. Careful. Compliments create liability. Julian grinned. Sarah said you'd say something like that. Across the ballroom, Claire stepped into view. Black formal dress, with a structured wrap. Blonde obtus. No clutch tapping. No. Marcus at her elbow. No investors forming a cage. A photographer lifted a camera. Flash. This time, Claire did not need extraction. She walked toward me through the light. One senior partner approached before she reached me. Claire, he said warmly. Strong week. And Mr. Scott. His eyes moved between us. Are we on the clock tonight? Claire did not hesitate. No, Richard, she said. Ethan isn't working tonight. His contract ended after the board action, and legal has the paperwork if anyone is bored enough to ask. Richard laughed. Claire looked at me. He is here because I asked him after the work was done, she continued. And because he said yes, no one had to guess. No one had to whisper power into the space between us. She named the truth before rumor could dress it up. Richard smiled, this time genuinely. Then enjoy the evening. Both of you. When he left, I looked at Claire. That was a very aggressive boundary. It was a clean one. Sarah will be proud. She helped write it. Of course she did. Claire lifted her hand to her mouth, holding back a laugh. The gesture matched the first night, but everything underneath it had changed. No catch. No panic. No Marcus. No contract. Just choice. The photographer called her name. Claire turned toward the camera, then looked back at me. Ready? I stepped beside her, not in front, not behind. Facts in action, I said. She smiled. Flash. This time, the picture told the truth. Later, Julian guided us toward the donor table with an expression of exaggerated importance. Your seating assignment has been upgraded, he said. Upgraded from what? Claire asked. From near the crisis exit to near the dessert station. I looked at him. That is not an upgrade. That is a strategic vulnerability. Claire laughed. Julian pointed his clipboard at me. You're off duty. Dessert is allowed. Sarah appeared behind him, holding a glass of sparkling water. I reviewed the dessert table. No legal concerns. You reviewed dessert? I asked. I review everything. Claire looked between us. I have built a company full of impossible people. Sarah lifted her glass. And yet it survived. That warmth landed differently from applause. No speech. No grand public confession. Just the people who had fought in the trenches standing under chandeliers, letting the room be ordinary again. At the dessert station, Claire picked up 2 small plates and handed one to me. Chocolate or lemon? Which one has fewer reputational risks? Lemon. Then chocolate. Her smile was quick, unguarded. For weeks, I had measured rooms by threat angles, donor reactions, leak timing, exit routes, and who stood too close to Claire when cameras were nearby. Now I measured the room by smaller things. Julian finally smiling. Sarah sitting down for the first time all night. Claire eating half a chocolate tart without checking her phone. My own hand resting empty at my side because there was nothing left to carry. When the jazz quartet shifted into a slower song, Claire looked toward the dance floor. Then at me. No obligation, she said. I nearly laughed. Are you quoting the closure memo? It was a good memo. I don't dance well. I run a communications firm. I can reframe that. As controlled movement under uncertain conditions? That sounds like crisis work. Everything does if you let it. She offered her hand. Open palm. No cameras pointed at us at that moment. No donors waiting for a statement. No board members reading meaning into distance. Just an offer. I took it. We walked to the edge of the dance floor. I kept the distance appropriate, one hand in hers, the other at her upper back, steady and light. Nothing possessive. Nothing performative. She led the first step because she knew the rhythm better. Of course she did. You know, she said, the first night you stepped into that investor circle, I thought you were going to shield me again. I considered it. But you didn't. No. You didn't need a wall. You needed a clean interruption. And now? I looked at the chandelier light reflecting in her eyes, then at the room that had once tried to turn her into a rumor. Now you don't need either. Claire's fingers tightened once around mine. Good, she said. Then stay because you want to. The answer did not need a press plan. I am. The music carried us through one careful turn. No flash hit us this time. No headline formed. No crisis opened beneath our feet. Just a clean choice, made in public, after every line had been drawn. When the song ended, Claire stepped back first. Still smiling, still herself. The room kept moving around us. And for once in my career, I did not feel the urge to manage it. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real love does not blur power. It waits until choice is clean. Green flag. They protect your name with facts, then let you choose them without pressure. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this. The end.